Good morning, my dear students. So now we are on our second week of discussion. Now for this particular meeting, what we're going to have is more on context clues, okay? Now if time permits, we're also going to have stress and order of adjectives. But most probably for this particular session, we're just going to focus on the first topic, okay? Which is again, all about context clues. So let's now have the second slide. Now, what exactly do you mean by context clues? So before we read on its definition, which is now projected on your screen or your monitor, let me share with you just exactly how I was able to learn how to speak English. Now, when I was young, when I was about your age, I was very fond of reading the newspaper, now specifically the broadsheet. Okay, now compared with a tabloid, it is somewhat bigger in terms of size, and apart from that, it is also written in English. So you can expect that you can actually encounter a lot of unfamiliar words. Now, when we say unfamiliar words, these are words that are somewhat hard to define, or you are totally having some difficulty trying to define them. Okay, so these again are what we mean by unfamiliar words. Now, what do I do with these words? After reading, I would always jot them down. So that's why I always have my pen and notebook beside me every time that I read. And then after reading, I'm going to consult the dictionary and look up for its meaning. Okay, so that was my practice before. Now, apart from reading, I was also fond of watching English programs. Now, just the same, just like in reading, every time that I would hear words that are quite interesting and are also quite unfamiliar, I would always be jotting them down. And then after watching, I will be reading my dictionary and look for its meanings. Okay, so that's exactly how I learned. Okay, now basically we're going to start with words, and then from words we're going to use them in sentences, and then after constructing sentences, we are going to practice some more in order to master it. Okay, so that is how I learned. Now, if we're going to apply this into our topic for this day or for this morning, which is all about context clues, they're very much related, okay? Because when we say context clues, these are hints. So when we say hints, it is another word for clues or signal words or signal markers that you have to associate with the sentence in order to come up with the meaning of the unfamiliar word. Now again, when we say context clues, these are hints that are found within a sentence, paragraph, or passage that the reader can use to understand the meanings of new or unfamiliar words. So I just hope that it is somewhat helpful to you in order to understand our topic for the day. Okay, so next on to our next slide. Okay, so at this point, we're now going to analyze the following statements, starting off with the first sentence. So I'm going to read on first, okay? So for Juan Carlos, having a tete-a-tete with his teacher after class is a great privilege. So before we analyze this, okay, let me just give you some tips or some reminders, okay? So specifically, we're going to give emphasis on the highlighted word or the word which is written in red, okay, in order to come up with its meaning on how it is used in the sentence using context clues. So the first thing that you have to do is number one, you have to read and understand the sentence. Okay, and number two, we are going to identify the unfamiliar word. Now, in this case, the unfamiliar word or the word which is hard to define has already been highlighted or is written in red. And then the last one is that this is a time that you are going to make use of your common sense in analyzing exactly on how the difficult word or the unfamiliar word was used in the sentence. Now, it is very important that we are going to make use of our common sense in order to come up with a meaning of the word using context clues. Now, in order to help us define or unlock or decode or give meaning to the unfamiliar word, I'm going to give you some choices. So on to our next slide. Okay, thank you. So the choices for the unfamiliar word tete in the first sentence are the following. So we have letter A, formal discussion, letter B, casual talk, letter C, debate, or letter D, comprehensive lesson. So before we come up with the meaning of the unfamiliar word on how it was used in the sentence using context clues, let's go back to our example, to our sentence. Okay, so again, for Juan Carlos, having a tete-a-tete with his teacher after class was a great privilege. So Juan Carlos in the sentence is the student who would love to have a tete-a-tete with his teacher after class, and for him, he considers it as a great privilege. So what do you think exactly are Juan Carlos and his teacher are doing? Okay, now I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if your answer is letter B, casual talk, then you are right. So when we say tete, it has the same meaning as a casual talk or a chat with someone. So that is the meaning of tete, having a chat or a casual talk. Okay, so on to our next slide. So let's have another sentence. Let's read on. Having fun every Friday night with his friends, they always have a potation at the Cowboy Grill. So let's analyze on how the unfamiliar word potation was used in the sentence using context clues. Now again, having fun every Friday night with his friends. So those are all the elements, okay? They always have a potation at the Cowboy Grill. So Cowboy Grill is a bar. So what do you think are they doing in a bar on a Friday night while having fun? Is it letter A, prayer meeting, letter B, training, letter C, drinking session, or letter D, rehearsal? Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 seconds, okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Time's up. Now, if your answer is letter D, then you are correct, okay? Because when we say having a potation, that is the same as having a drinking session, okay? Or relaxing by way of consuming liquors, okay? So that is what we mean by potation. Letter C, it's drinking session. So let's now have the last example, okay? So on to our next slide. Let's now have the third and last sentence, so let's read on. After an 8-mile run, Jose's appetite was voracious and he consumed everything in the fridge. So what do you think will be the natural reaction of the body if you're going to run 8 miles, okay? Is it letter A, having a huge appetite, letter B, eating like a bird, letter C, following a diet plan, or letter D, hardly eating? Again, what do you think will be the reaction of your body if you're going to run 8 miles straight? Okay, is it letter A, B, C, or D? I'm going to give you again 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if your answer is letter A, then you are correct. Okay, again, when we say voracious, it is only but normal that you are going to have a huge appetite after running quite a distance. Okay, so that's letter A. So let's now have the next slide. Now that you're fully aware of what context clues are, so let's now proceed to its types. Okay, so basically there are 4 types of context clues. So the first one is synonym or restatement clue. Now this is a type of context clue that provides the synonyms of words to provide the meaning of an unfamiliar word or words. So the focus of our analysis is more on synonyms. Now what basically is a meaning of synonyms, okay? Now, these are words with similar or nearly the same meanings, okay? Now, let's consider the first one. The principal felt remorse or shame for hiring some incompetent employees. Now, if you would notice, our unfamiliar word remorse has the same meaning as shame, okay? So they are one and the same in terms of meanings, and they are connected by the conjunction or. So it's like our signal word for this type of context clue is the conjunction or. Okay, so it connects our unfamiliar word to our synonymous word. Okay, let's now have the second one. The new teacher seems enthusiastic or very interested as she shows passion in her work. Okay, again, our unfamiliar word enthusiastic has the same meaning as the next word, which is very interested, and they are connected by the conjunction or. So it's like or is our signal word for the first type of context clue, which is synonym or restatement clue. I hope that that is something helpful. Okay, so let's now have the next slide. The second type of context clue is definition or statement clue. Now, this is a type of context clue that provides direct statement or meaning of the unfamiliar word or words. Now, the focus of our analysis here is more on the group of words that comes after our unfamiliar word, only this time instead of a word, it is separated by a comma. So let's consider the following sentences. Number 1, bonsai, the art of growing trees in small pots, is well known in Japan. Now, what do you mean by our unfamiliar word bonsai? It is the art of growing trees in small pots. Now, what have you noticed? It is separated by a Very good. It is separated by a comma. So let's now have the second sentence. Incompetence, the lack of sufficiency, is no longer an issue nowadays. Again, what do you mean by incompetence? How do you define that word? It is? Very good. It is the lack of insufficiency. Again, it is separated by a comma. Okay, so that is for our examples for the second type of context clue, which is definition or statement clue. Okay, so let's now have the next slide. So the third type of context clue is antonym, opposite, or contrast, wherein the sentence uses a word with an opposite definition to give the meaning of the vocabulary word. Now, the focus of our analysis here is more on antonyms. Now, what exactly are antonyms? These are words with opposite meanings. Okay, so let's now consider the example, our sentence. So let's read on. The king is the most important piece. However, it is also considered as one of the weakest. Unlike the queen, which is considered the most powerful piece, still, you can win the game without the queen, but never without a king. Okay, so let's now identify the antonyms or the words with opposite meanings. So what is the opposite of the word king? Exactly, very good. That is the word queen. Now, what about for the weakest? For the word weakest, what is its opposite meaning in the sentence? Okay, so we have the most powerful. So again, we have two pairs of opposite words or antonyms. So the first one is king, opposite is queen, and then weakest, opposite is most powerful. And if you would notice, we also have a signal word, which is again an example of conjunction, which is however, which signals that the content of the sentence is using antonym or opposite or contrast. So that is for the third type of context clue. Again, we have antonym, opposite, or contrast. Okay, so let's now have our next slide. Thank you. Now, finally, for the last type of context clue, so we have example or explanation. Now, this is a type of context clue that uses examples to help the reader infer the meaning of the vocabulary word. Now, there's a slight difference between example and explanation. Now, when we say example, you are enumerating, or so you're giving out examples, okay? However, when we say explanation, it's like you are narrating or you are giving off personal accounts, okay? So that is a difference between example and explanation. When you exemplify or when you give examples, you enumerate. But when you explain, you are narrating or you are giving off accounts. Okay, now let's consider the first sentence or the first example. Promotion is a special ability of pawns wherein if it reaches the other side of the board, it can become any other chess piece except the king. There was a time that I lost my queen in the game. Fortunately, one of my pawns reaches the enemy's territory. I regained the queen in return. Now, if you would notice, based on the content of the first sentence, okay, it's like you are narrating what happened at the time when you were playing chess. Okay, so that is an example of explanation, because basically you're just explaining, you're just narrating, okay, the personal accounts based on your experience. Now, on with the second example. Different areas of disciplines such as math, English, and science must be taught in all levels. Now, if you would notice, there are many examples given in the second sentence, okay? So we have different areas of disciplines. What are they? So we have math, English, and science. So basically, it just gives off some examples. So you enumerate examples, making it, okay, example or explanation. What type of context clue? Okay, it is very good. That is example. Unlike the first one wherein you are just narrating, so that is an example of explanation. So that is the difference between example and explanation. The last type of context clues. Okay, so let's now have the next one. Okay, so on this part of the slide, we are going to have our next topic, okay, our topic for the next meeting. But before that, let's have a recap first of the content of our discussion for this session. So we have context clues. Now, when we say context clues, again, the meaning of the unfamiliar words are actually embedded within the sentence. So all you have to do is just analyze using your common sense. Okay, so first you have to read the sentence, then you have to identify the unfamiliar word, and then the third and last step is that you're going to analyze on how the word was used in the sentence using the clues that are included within the sentence or paragraph. Okay, so that is how we make use of context clues. Now there are four major types or four types of context clues. So we have synonyms, wherein you are going to focus on the word with similar meanings within the sentence. Number two, we have definition. So we have the signal marker, comma, that comes after the word being defined, then followed by the full definition of the word. Then number three, we also have antonym, which is the opposite of the word which we are looking for. And then finally, we have example or explanation. When we say example, the key word is that you enumerate, okay? And then when you say explanation, the key word is that from the word itself, you explain or you narrate personal accounts, okay? So that is our, or the content of our topic for the first session, which is all about context clues. Now, stress as well as order of adjectives will be the content of our discussion uh, on our next meeting. So in passing, let us just have the following words. Okay, so we're just going to read and identify the difference in terms of sound. If you are going to read it either fast or slow, or make use of the words as either as a noun or as a verb or an action word. And then as for the meaning, perhaps we're just going to come up with the difference of the pairs of words or the words given as we go along with our discussion. Okay, so let's now have the following. So stress is the verbal emphasis used in one syllable in a word. So let's read and analyze the following. Okay, so number one, it can be read as address or address. Again, that's address or address. Number two, conduct or conduct. Again, conduct or conduct. Number three, object or object. Again, object or object. It depends on the sound. And then once you pronounce it differently, the meaning also changes. Okay, number four, we have protest, protest. Again, protest, protest. Number five, present, present. Again, present, present. Number six, or number seven, research, research. Research, research. So there's a slight difference in terms of sound. Okay, so you have to be very careful in analyzing. Okay, next, record, record. Record, record. Next, progress, progress. Progress, progress. And number 10 for the first set, okay, we have project, project. Project, project. Number 11, convert, convert. Convert, convert. Number 12, comment, comment. Comment, comment. So there's a difference in terms of sound, okay? Again, be very careful in analyzing the pairs of words. Number 13, resume, resume. Resume, resume. Okay, next, contract, contract. Contract, contract. Next, number 15, convict, convict. Convict, convict. Number 16, desert, desert. Desert, desert. Okay, next is number 17. Perfect, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay, last three. So we have permit and permit. Again, permit and permit. Okay, second to the last. Produce and produce. Again, produce and produce. And then the last one, so we have replay and replay. Replay and replay. Okay, so we are going to discuss this in full detail on our next meeting, okay, on our next discussion. But first, for now, we're just focused on the difference in terms of sounds, okay? So let's now have the last slide. Now, as for the order of adjectives, which is part of our next lesson, okay, part of your assignment. So please study the order of adjectives. So we have the following sequence. So number one, article or pronoun. So examples of which are a, my, the, or the. Okay. So next is ordinal. Example of which is first, and then we have cardinal, intensifier, quality, size, shape. Then number eight is age, color, participle, proper adjective, which of course starts with a capital letter. And then we also have the noun adjective, and then finally, we have the head noun or the word being described. Okay, so if we're going to sum up, okay, and then if we're going to give off an example based on the following pieces of words or adjectives that are given there. So we have my first three: beautiful, small, round, century-old, green, handmade, Parisian cloth, parasol are still extant. So when we say extant, it means it still exists. Okay, you still have it in good condition. So that is what we mean by the word extant. Okay, you still have it in good condition. Okay, so again, for the last time, as part of our assignment for our next meeting, okay, so we have the sequence for the order of adjectives, article or pronoun, then we have ordinal, cardinal, intensifier, quality, size, shape, age, color, participle, proper adjective, noun, adjective, and head noun. So that will be all for today. I just hope that you learned something, and looking forward to our next meeting. Okay, so this is Sir Lucky signing off, and I'll see you around. Good day, God bless, and I love you.